This is Paul McGann, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast.
The tangents is sweet to continue all the way to episode 131 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. The DC superheroes, they have the Hall of Justice. But for one weekend, they came together in Elkhart, Indiana at the Hall of Superheroes. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like we do every week by going to the virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
This is Mitch in Kitchener, Ontario.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Hello.
I think Brittany, it'd be more appropriate if you said this is Brittany in Blizzardville, but...
Yeah, probably, but...
Brittany's gonna get a little bit of snow.
Just a little.
Just a little. Just a teeny tiny bit.
Oh my. So, but you're good. You've got supplies, you've got power, you've got
I have a bunch of TV shows to need to catch up on.
Exactly, there you go. Oh, you've been saying, I need to catch up on my shows. Now here's your chance.
Mm-hmm.
Prime opportunity. Oh. Yes, Mother Nature decided that spring, not quite yet. We may have sprung forward as far as the time on the clock is concerned, but that's about it.
Yeah, spring's still a week away before that's forever, so.
Yep. This is not a weather podcast, so we're going to move on.
Yes.
So, first up, news. And of course, 'tis the season, so we got some convention announcements. Apparently FanX, they want to keep adding people up to the very last minute. So they have announced Danielle Panabaker from The Flash. And then Chrissy was very excited about this announcement. Zachary Levi. How does he pronounce his last name? Is it Levy or Levi? Because I've heard it pronounced both ways.
I think it's Levi, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
I've always pronounced it Levi, but
Like the
could be
jeans.
wrong.
But I've heard people, not him, but other people say his last name and say Levy. So, I don't know. Someone asked
Maybe someone should
Have
ask him that on...
Really?
Someone should ask him that on on a panel.
Yeah. Somebody asked him, how do you pronounce your name? And then Indie PopCon announced a couple of voiceover artists, Johnny Cruz and Charlotte Chung, who, if you're an Overwatch player, you will know them as, Lucio? Lucio? I don't play Overwatch, so I don't know. And Diva. And I know a lot of people are very, very, very excited to have the voice of Diva be coming to Indie PopCon. There's so many people losing their minds. They're like, oh my god! Well, I don't play Overwatch, but from what I hear, it's quite popular. And I know Diva is a very popular character because I see her cosplayed I don't even play it, but I recognize her when I see her. It's a very distinct look, and especially if apparently Doritos and Mountain Dew is a thing with her. So, yeah. I've seen people post on Facebook, I'm going to have my picture taken with her, and I'm going to have Doritos and Mountain Dew. And I'm like, okay, good for you. I'm sure you're not the first person to do that, but go for it. And apparently PopCon, they have teased. They've got 3 guest announcements they're going to make on Wednesday. If you have not noticed or been paying attention, they they are doing a weekly show that they're posting on their Facebook page called Con Job. I don't know where Carl came up with that name, but...
Hello.
Hey, there's Chrissy!
Hi, sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
Are we recording yet? Or?
Yes, we're in the middle of news.
Oh. Okay, that's cool.
But,
hi, everybody!
Hey! But they've been posting that on their Facebook page, and then they've been making guest announcements and other announcements, and they've been doing giveaways for badges and swag and all sorts of stuff. So if you're into Indie PopCon and maybe want to win something, make sure you check that out on their Facebook page. I guess posted on Wednesday evenings. So I don't have no idea who the guest announcements are, so I'm in the dark as the rest of y'all. So it's all good. And then Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo just made a few guest announcements, including Peter Capaldi is going to be at that particular convention. So if you happen to be going to Calgary for that convention and you meet Peter Capaldi, please tell us how it was. Very jealous.
The more I hear of Peter Capaldi doing Comic Cons, the more I'm like, oh, there's a great bigger chance he could come here someday.
I know. Oh. And then one more convention announcement, which just got announced today, so I haven't had a chance to add it to the show notes because I've been stupid busy, is Planet Comic Con announced Catherine Tate.
Woohoo!
You're going to have Donna and Rose and Captain Jack all at the same convention.
Oh, boy. Brace yourself, Kansas City. Holy cow.
Shenanigans will be had.
Indeed. Very much so.
Hopefully the
I can't wait to hear the stories.
One piece by the end.
If the guys manage to survive Planet Comic Con, I'm sure their stories are going to be amazing.
Right? I know, that one's going to go down ages.
Long podcast on that one. Please, all details.
And we're like, do not leave out any of the juicy details. We want to hear it all.
Exactly.
Even if they have to resort to doing...
goes into 3-hour territory. Please, give.
You guys, I know you've been trying to keep it short, but you are welcome to pontificate long about that particular episode. I do kind of miss the long episode, so I won't complain.
Nope.
Yes.
Considering John Barrowman's going to be there, if we need to do another Traveling the Vortex After Dark.
Yeah. Oh boy.
There's a precedent for that now. Oh my. John Barrowman came up several times over the course of the convention I was at over the weekend, but I will get to that shortly. He wasn't there, but his name still came up a lot. Speaking of Doctor Who, because Doctor Who likes to do this, they decided to drop yet another teaser trailer for the new season. Some of it is clips we've already seen. Bill exclaiming that the inside of the TARDIS looks like a kitchen. And the Doctor being very confused with that. But we do get a couple of glimpses of Missy in this new trailer. And Missy's got a new outfit and a slightly new hairdo. And not long after Doctor Who posted that on social media, they posted another video of Michelle Gomez / Missy doing a reaction to said trailer with handles. So
that does not surprise me. I haven't seen any of this because it's a long story, busy day.
Yep.
But oh my gosh, how long did it took him long enough to do that stuff. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, but makes us all very excited for the new season, which is
Can't wait.
Easter Saturday. Oh. And talking about other things that I'm anxiously counting down for. They actually dropped they did the announcement before, or right before South by Southwest started over the weekend, but then there was also a panel at South by Southwest for anyone that was in the Austin area over the weekend. But Game of Thrones, we finally have a premiere date for the next season of Game of Thrones. And the way they did it, being Game of Thrones, they couldn't just, throw up like a little trailer or something or a graphic saying, season returns on this date, 2017. No, they put the date on a piece of metal and then encased that piece of metal in a block of ice. And then they did a live stream on Facebook, and if people wrote the word fire in the comments, it would turn on a blowtorch and help melt the ice to reveal the premiere date.
Oh boy.
And apparently it took over an hour for the ice block to be melted. And at one point, apparently it broke for like 20 minutes. And people about lost their minds, and they had to end the stream while they were trying to fix it. And people are like, "Oh my God!" Even Game of Thrones teasing about the return. It ends in a cliffhanger.
Now this is the last season for it. Did I read that right? Somewhere?
No.
Second to the last.
Second to the
last. Okay. Okay.
Yep. But Game of Thrones returns in June, right? June.
July.
July. So I have something that weekend, I think. So because I was like, am I free that weekend?
You always seem to be going on somewhere right when a show starts.
I do.
DVR it.
Yeah. Anyway, this summer it's happening. It's premiering later than it has been for every other season because they had to adjust the filming schedule because winter is coming and they need to be able to film when it's actually cold. So
July 16th.
July 16th. So there you go. Game of Thrones shall return. But then they had a panel at South by Southwest. The two showrunners were there along with Maisie Williams, and Sophie Turner, and obviously they can't say a whole lot without spoiling anything. But they...
Yeah, I'm kind of like, how do they do a panel? Do they just kind of sit up there and be like, I can't say anything?
Well, they can talk about the previous seasons.
Well, okay, that's true.
So, and stuff like that, I guess. And they did confirm that the last season was going to only be 6 episodes. There's supposed to be only 13 episodes left. It was supposed to be 70 episodes for the entire series. It ended up being 73. They've done 60 so far. But then that is subject to changing, I guess, depending on how things, as far as editing. So the last 2 seasons will be shorter as far as the number of episodes, but they have said that the episodes themselves will be longer, more than likely. So they're not going to be an hour, they'll be hour plus. And it can vary from episode to episode on how long they'll be, because it's HBO and they can do whatever the heck they want. And it's Game of Thrones, they can do whatever the heck they want. So.
Yep. And I thought I saw somewhere too that singer Ed Sheeran,
Ed Sheeran
is also going to be guest starring.
Yes, they've done that several times where they've had various musical artists make appearances, but they're usually so heavily made up that you don't even recognize them. So Ed may end up in there and you won't even realize that you saw him. So, depending on what they do.
Everyone will be like, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Well, he was right there in front of everybody.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yes. And then they did release a little teaser after they announced the premiere date as well, and it's just a visual thing with this with audio clips from past seasons and Daenerys talking about how all the other families, she's gonna essentially take them and become ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, and I'm so ready for it. I'm team Daenerys all the way.
I don't even watch the show, and I'm Team Daenerys.
Well,
she's got the dragons going for her.
It's
I just want her to kind of come out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden she's there, and all these obnoxious royal families have been bickering this whole time, and then she just comes in and says, "Nope, I'm queen now."
Yeah.
Tough it up. Yep.
That's pretty much how we're hoping it'll go. She's just gonna come in and be like, "I've got dragons, y'all. What are you gonna do about it? Nothing. Boom. Bye. Get out of my Iron Throne. It's mine now."
That's mine.
So, well, before the season premieres, we will Thrones episode. I think Brittany and I are the only two people who've actually watched all of it. So we'll be the two Game of Thrones experts, I guess. But we'll definitely need to discuss it before it returns.
It won't be the first time that we've had an episode where just a few of us knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. Alrighty. Go with whoever's got the dragons. Dragons always win. Alright. Speaking of epic, not quite as epic, but still epic. I guess you could say Chris Hemsworth's abs are pretty epic. We got our first look photo-wise at Thor Ragnarok. Entertainment Weekly released a bunch of photos, and holy crap, Thor got a haircut!
I think that was sort of the general consensus of the entire thing. It's like, oh, he has shorter hair now.
Yeah, it was like, we got all these photos. It's like Loki, and you've got Jeff Goldblum, and we see Bruce Banner again, but pretty much everyone's like, holy crap, Thor got a haircut! Apparently the haircut, there is reasoning to it in the story. So it's not as random as it seems to us now, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, I'm like, was this just because Chris Hemsworth didn't want to grow out his hair, or is this part of the story? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
I read, because, I was reading the comments, even though I don't know why, because everyone seems to be all grumpy about him, but, some of the people who are knowledgeable of the comics saying that that's canon or something.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But it looks pretty cool for, it's Marvel. I mean, they all look cool, so, but, well,
yes,
Thor's got this new look, and you've got Cate Blanchett looking like she just walked out of, a emo Marilyn Manson concert, and... so it looks pretty awesome. So, but hopefully with photos, some sort of teaser is not too far behind. So, because it does come out in November, and generally we start getting stuff 6 months ish beforehand. So we've got a little bit of time, but. I would imagine if we don't get something before then, more than likely we will get our first teaser, probably with Guardians of the Galaxy, because they do like to tie stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if we don't get something before then, it's not that long till Guardians comes out. So.
Well, let's see. Guardians comes out in May.
Yep.
Thor is out in November. So yeah, that's about 6 months.
Yeah.
So that would. That would make sense.
Yep. Meanwhile, Spider-Man's there in the middle, like, "Hey, what about me?"
Mm-hmm. Oh, we've gotten stuff for Spider-Man.
I know.
I'm sure they'll ramp up the promo for that as well.
This is we keep getting stuff for Guardians. It's like we got that those few little things from Spider-Man Homecoming, and ever since then it's been like Guardians, and now we're getting Thor, and then Spider-Man's in the middle, like, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, Spidey. We're excited for you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you will get your chance, Spidey.
One movie at a time. Mm-hmm. right. Moving on to Star Trek news. When I posted this on Facebook, I had to edit it, and I had to put quotation marks around the word stars, because technically that's not true. Because as captain, you would think he's the star, but as they've already with the other casting announcements and descriptions for the new series, the captain's actually not going to be the focus for the new Star Trek series. So, but regardless of whether he's the focus or not, the ship does need a captain. And apparently, the new Star Trek is going to be the captain is going to be Jason Isaacs, or be played by Jason Isaacs. So
I'm excited.
Yeah.
In fact, this is quite honestly the first casting announcement I've actually been genuinely excited about. The rest of them I've just kind of been like, "Who's that? I don't know."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and that's not fault of their own. I mean, it's always good when you give, some young and up-and-coming star a chance to shine in something that's got some pedigree behind it. But at the same time, you're like, I don't know who you are, so I don't know how good you're going to be, but good luck to you.
Well, it's like when there's a new casting announcement for, say, Doctor Who, I kind of expect not to know who the people are, because they're actors from Britain, and I don't really know British TV very much.
Yeah.
But where this is Star Trek, and it's an American property, I'm kind of like, okay, but I don't know. Maybe I've been taking cues from the Trek fans in my life, and so far they've been underwhelmed. So I'm just kind of like, okay, well, maybe this isn't such a good thing. But that being said, we're gonna give this a shot.
Mm-hmm. From Jason himself, he's at Planet Comic-Con.
Yep. Or maybe it'll be like, I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah, more than likely that'll be like, well, I can tell you this tiny little piece of information, but that's it. Well, yeah. But yeah. That's who the ship's captain is going to be. So
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it's been with this Star Trek series. We're just wait and see. All right, moving back to Doctor Who. And I really need to make sure I take advantage of this before it ends, because I didn't with the last Humble Bundle we talked about.
Yep.
But there's a Humble Bundle currently out where you can get audio from Big Finish, which, some of the Big Finishes, they can be kind of expensive. So to be able to get, a good handful of some Big Finish stuff for fairly expensive, and it goes to a good cause, is win-win.
It's mostly Destiny of the Doctor, which was that series they did for the 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some 8th Doctor in there, and Torchwood as well. And I think I have most of these, but there's also the Churchill years, which is volume 1 of the Churchill years, which I have not listened to. I actually forgot that was a thing. So I'm like, and that's, you pay $15 to get that. And I'm like, that might actually be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the one. Mm-hmm. But, if you are looking to start the 8th Doctor, or just wanting to fill out some of your collection, this is a good chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the charity they're supporting is Children in Need, so we like them, so yay for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a little bit of Doctor Who Legacy actually included in that as well, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot about. Well, I didn't forget about it. I glossed over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there. It says additional content.
Yep.
So yeah, you get codes for unlocking a bunch of different characters and things. So if you're looking to get started on Doctor Who Legacy. Humble Bundle.
Mm-hmm. You can play Doctor Who Legacy while listening to your Big Finish audio.
Mm-hmm. Which is what I did yesterday. I was recuperating from daylight.
Yeah.
Stupid daylight savings time. I mean, actually, no.
Yes.
I've come to the conclusion walking the Sunday of daylight savings time is the worst.
Well, yes.
That was no.
Yes, that does. That does kind of. But anyway.
Yeah.
And then last but certainly not least,
they are keeping the book club busy.
Yes,
which is good.
Yeah, they've announced 3 new books that are 12th Doctor era, coming out in April. So they're going to be 12th Doctor and the new companion Bill and Nardole as well. So those will come out April 20th. The three new books. Diamond Dog, Spinning Man. So.
Yep, and don't worry, those will be up on the polls when they are all available.
Mm-hmm. No. Certainly don't come out till towards the end of April, probably May going forward. So.
Yeah. But, that'll be about when season 10 is either, in the middle or wrapping up, so then you'll have something to kind of look to get you through till Christmas even. So.
Yep. Meanwhile, I'm still working on the first of the Lethbridge Stewart books.
You and me both, sister.
Yeah. Well, I finally got the first one. I finally got The Forgotten Son, and I've been slowly working on it, and I just haven't had the time to sit and read.
They are good. Some of them are slow burns, but they are well worth it.
They're good. It's just
it's
just finding the time to be able to sit and read and not have my attention be taken by something else.
Yep. I mean, I have all of them. I've read a good chunk of them. It's I get distracted by other things, and it's not that is nothing against the Lethbridge Stewart stuff. It's just I have so much.
There's only so many
hours
in the day.
I listen to the guys. Yeah. Every time I listen to the guys review one, I'm like, I need to read that.
Well, thankfully, I'm so far behind that I vaguely remember their review, so if there was any spoilers, I've forgotten them. It's one advantage to being way behind. Spoilers get forgotten, so get to a certain point, I'm like, oh, okay. Well. Oh my. Oh, all right. Well, that's it for news. It's quite a bit, actually. So, 'tis the season, I guess. Oh. Alrighty. Well, moving on to this week's topic. This is my chance to take over, I guess. So, as I'm recovering here still from my first con of the season, I spent the weekend up north in Elkhart, Indiana, for the first ever Hall of Heroes Comic-Con, which was quite convenient because it's like 20 minutes from my in-laws' house. So,
hey, that works.
Anytime that I don't have to rent a hotel room is always a good time in my book as far as conventions are concerned. So, saves me a crap ton of money.
And you can go get autographs and stuff.
Actually, I did not get any autographs. I did not get any autographs. No photos. I did buy a few pieces of art, which I have no idea where I'm going to hang. But I bought them anyway. We'll get to that. So yeah, Hall of Heroes, which I think I've talked about a little bit. Their founder of the Hall of Heroes is a superhero museum. They've been open about 10 years. Apparently their 10-year anniversary is later this year, I think, this summer. But it was founded by a gentleman by the name of Alan Stewart, who is a big comic book, collector and just loves history in general. But he's very passionate about preserving not only comic books but other pieces of memorabilia from the comic book universe. So things like action figures and screen use props and that sort of thing. So the museum's collection is started out with mostly his personal collection, and since the museum's founding, they have purchased stuff specifically for the museum for the purpose of preserving it. Even if this stuff increases in value down the line, he has no intention of selling anything. He wants to keep it where it can be on display and people can look at it and appreciate it, and it's protected and that sort of thing. So I've spoken to him a couple of times. I actually interviewed him at Indiana Comic-Con a couple of years ago. That was the same convention that Jenna Coleman was at, and I got to hold the Captain America shield and about crapped myself. One, because it's the screen used Captain America shield, not the stunt one, but like I forget what they call it exactly, like the beauty one, where it's like the one where it gets close to the camera and it's got some weight to it and it looks legit, and this sucker is. This thing is heavy. Chris Evans, God love him, there's a reason he's got those muscles. Not only just because it looks good, he needs them to carry that shield. It's signed. The shield is actually from Captain America, the First Avenger, but it's autographed on the back from the entire cast of Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Stan Lee. So that's pretty impressive. So it's like the shield itself is really cool, and then you look on the back and you see like Stan Lee's autograph and Chris Evans and Anthony Mackie and Clark Gregg and all these people, and I'm like, oh,
all the people that make Rachel's heart go pitter patter.
Pretty much. Pretty much. So that's cool. That's one of their kind of the crown jewels of the collection. But that's the sort of things that he likes to have the museum to have, so that people can see them and experience them and that sort of thing. So he has experience in doing conventions before, and he saw an opportunity in that part of the state of Indiana, because it's Elkhart, Granger, Mishawaka, South Bend area. South Bend, usually if you tell people, Chauncey tells people where, he's originally from, he says South Bend because people know South Bend because of the University of Notre Dame. Rudy. Most people don't know Elkhart. It's a tiny little town. But there's not really anything in that area for the comic book fans and the nerds and all that. As far as conventions, they either have to go to Chicago if like Wizard World is holding a con in Chicago, or Chicago TARDIS if you're a Doctor Who fan, or you have to go up into Michigan, or you have to come all the way down to Indianapolis. So there's a market there. Alan was all like, I'm going to do this. So he got together some people and put this together, and this year was the first year for it. So it was held at the Lerner Theater, which is right on smack dab in the middle of downtown Elkhart, right on Main Street. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a theater. They show movies and they do stage shows, musicals, plays, that sort of thing. It's been there since at least the 40s, if not before that because Chauncey's grandmother remembers going to the learner for things. So it is.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool and unique venue. Unfortunately, for something like a comic convention, it's not the most ideal location for something like this. There's a reason that cons are generally held at convention centers, just because they are made to equip the the number of people that usually come to these things. Conventions on the smaller side. Sometimes you can get away with going to like a hotel that's got like conference type setup. But you kind of need like those larger square rooms with nice open hallways and that sort of thing. But the learner, compared to something like, if you're familiar with Indianapolis, we have the Murat. I think it's got a different name now because it's changed ownership in the last few years. But I always known it as the Murat. It's a theater in downtown Indy where they do a lot of Broadway musicals and they do some concerts and stuff. It is quite a bit bigger than the Learner. So the Learner is already tiny, and then the just the layout is not necessarily the most ideal for something like this. Unfortunately, it was very cold this weekend, so that did not help any. I think with some of the people's moods as far as the situation, because this theater, it just has this tiny little lobby. You couldn't really let people in and have them wait for the show to begin. So we were stuck waiting outside, and it was really cold. So that was not fun, but you can't do anything about the weather, unfortunately. That's one thing that's out of con organizers' hands is Mother Nature. And seriously, they could have this convention the exact same weekend next year, and it could be 80 degrees. That's just the way it is in Indiana in March. So,
yeah.
But that being said, they did the best they could. I got there Saturday a little before 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., and it started at 10, doors opened at 10. And the line wrapped around the side of the building and was going down the block towards the parking lot that I was parked at. That was a nice thing about the location. Lots of parking, all of it free, so that's always good. I'm not used to not having to pay for parking, because in Indianapolis you can't look at a parking space without somebody asking you to pay for it, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can understand that perfectly.
Yeah. So parking was great. So I already had my tickets, so I didn't have to worry about going to will call to pick up my ticket or anything. So I just got in line and waited with a whole bunch of other people, and to keep the poor people that were behind me, we were all kind of dancing in our spot in line to keep the blood flowing. Just because it was so cold. It was like 23-ish degrees, I think, Saturday morning. So it was really cold.
Oh, goodness.
And windy.
Let's conga, everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. I was telling him about how I went to Disney World one year, and Florida had an unseasonably cold weather front come through, and we were doing conga lines in between attractions to try to keep the blood flowing. So,
Goodness.
it was kind of something similar. It's like you just kind of keep moving, keep the blood flowing. Yeah. It makes for some entertaining things for other people to look at, I guess. Like, hey, look at the crazy people dancing. But we got through the line. They had a tent set up right outside the doors for people to get to swap out their ticket for a wristband And that's also where they were doing the weapons check for the cosplayers and bag check for anyone that had a big bag with them or anything. So not anything that I was wholly unfamiliar with because I've been to 5 bazillion conventions at this point. So it finally got in the doors, and I was like, "Yay, eat!" And it's all right there. Because of the size of the theater, they were taking up pretty much every single square foot of this facility to try and make it work. They had the actual theater itself. The main stage was what they used for all their programming, as far as panels are concerned, which that was pretty cool. One, really comfy seats, unlike a convention center where they're like metal folding chairs. This is a theater, so they're nice, cushy seats. And they're, of course, on a slope, so you don't have to worry unless you get someone really tall sitting in front of you. You're on a nice grade, so you're not having to be concerned about being able to see, They put the Shelby Cobra from Iron Man 1 that they bought several years ago for the museum on the lift for the orchestra pit, and then lowered the pit just enough that the top of the car was peeking out so then people could walk up and look over and take pictures of it. But that kept people from going up and touching it and trying to climb in it. Not that you really can, because it's from, if you remember from the first Iron Man movie, I think when he's testing one of the Iron Man suits and it backfires on him and he lands on the car and crushes it. It's been a while since I've seen the first Iron Man, but I'm pretty sure that's how that happens. So this is the car after Tony Stark has landed on it in the Iron Man suit. So the car itself is crushed. And it was an actual car. It wasn't like a kit car. It had an actual working engine and could drive before they destroyed it for this particular stunt. So it's screen used for this car. So that was pretty cool to have that up on the stage the entire weekend. And then they also had the motorcycle from the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movie on display out in the lobby, so people could have their photo taken with that. And then they had the Chris Evans Captain America shield for people to have their photo with. And then they had some other smaller memorabilia, comics and all that on display in some cases, including their newest acquisition for the museum. It is Sensation Comics #1 is the first appearance of Wonder Woman, which is an extremely rare comic book. Unlike something like a Superman #1 or a Batman #1, where a couple of them may come up every year, the Wonder Woman #1 comes up once every couple of years, and not in this condition. So when it came up, and Alan was like, "Do I need to buy this?" He asked the guy. He's got a friend who does comic grading and restoration, and the dude was, because he could choose between a Wonder Woman or Superman, and his friend was all like, "Dude, buy the Wonder Woman. Like you will not regret buying the Wonder Woman." So they had that on display, and actually that is going to go. If you didn't get to see it at the convention, you're not going to get to see it again until June, when they put it out on permanent display after they hold Wonder Woman Day at the museum. So they're in celebration of DC's official Wonder Woman Day in June. That's when the comic will actually go back out on display for people to look at. So if you missed it, sorry, you're going to have to wait. Too bad. And then they had cosplayers. They had some cosplayers there, including Michael, a.k.a. Night Mage, who I interviewed at Midwest Toy Fest last year. So it was cool to see him again. He's super nice dude. Super, super nice dude. I'm sure I said that when I talked about him at Midwest Toy Fest, but he's super nice. So were the other cosplayers that they had there that were the other judges for the cosplay contest. So they seem like they had a lot of fun. And then most of the other vendors are actually upstairs. They've all ballroom on the second floor, where they put most of the dealers. And then I never actually went to where the celebrities were, just because it wasn't a priority to go get an autograph or photo or anything. But I saw the signage, and I think it was a room similar to the ballroom on the other side of the building. But they were what they were having people do is go up the stairs to the balcony of the main theater, cutting across the balcony to get to the other side, to get to that room over there. And then they could come back out, and then there was a hallway that would come back across to the stairwell, but I never went up there. So, but based on the photos, that seems to be how it did. But again, the size and the layout, you got friendly with the crowds. Even if the numbers were closer to what they had expected, I think it still would have been pretty cozy as far as maneuvering around for just stop at the different dealer booths and everything. There were a few vendors there that I already knew, just because there are shops that are in the area that Chauncey has taken me to. There's Fun Effects, which is it used to be just a pop-up shop that would pop up right before Halloween, where people could buy Halloween costumes and makeup and all the stuff that you see when those types of shops open up near Halloween. But I guess they got popular enough that now they're open all the time. But you can go in and buy wigs and costumes and fake plastic swords and special effects makeup and all that fun stuff. And then Media Madhouse, which is a tiny little brick and mortar store, which sells secondhand DVDs and video games. Those two shops I recognized. Most of the other vendors, it was kind of the same stuff you see at most comic conventions. Used comics, Funko Pops, that sort of thing. There was an artist that I walked by his table several times on Saturday and didn't give him a second glance. And then I walked by his table on Sunday and stopped and really looked at his stuff and looked at him and looked at his stuff, and they were like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "I think I've bought from you before." They're like, "Oh yeah? Like, what'd you buy?" I said, "Baby dancing Groot in a pot." Like, "Yeah, that's mine." Like, okay, good to know I'm not crazy.
The artists sure do get around.
They do. They really do. That's the thing, is you start, if you go to enough conventions that are in the same area, like travel radius, you do start seeing the same people. Now, if I made it a habit of going to like California and all sorts of random states, and it might be more likely that I'd see artists that I haven't seen before. But considering I stay pretty much in Indiana, I start seeing the same people because they all go to the same convention.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, though. He was nice about it. He laughed. He's like, "Yeah, that's mine." I'm like, "Awesome." So, Scott Rosema, if you want to look him up. He's a nice guy. I've talked to him before when I was buying that piece of art that I can see right now. It's hanging on my wall. Dancing Baby Groot. He's very cute. And then they had a couple of other artists. Phil Ortiz, who actually worked on The Simpsons, So he was offering, you could pay to have him Simpsonize you. So you could see what you'd look like if you were a member of Springfield, I guess. And then the others were Mike Toth. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. That he worked on cartoons like He-Man and Masters of the Universe. And then there was Tom Cook, who did work for Hanna-Barbera. And then Mike Gasway, who he was actually a director, and he was a animator director. So, but that was kind of fun. As far as like the I guess higher caliber non-artist guests, non-artist alley guests. The big headliner was Dean Cain, who most people know as Superman. So, and of course now he's also on Supergirl, like Supergirl's father. And then they had Frank and Trace, who were from Mystery Science Theater 3000. And then Reb Brown, who played Captain America back in the 1970s the production. And then Alan Bellman, who is actually one of the oldest living comic book artists. And he worked for Marvel for the longest time. And unfortunately, their other big guest, Chris Brewster, had to cancel at the last minute. Chris is a stuntman and stunt coordinator who's done a lot of work for Marvel. He's actually been Chris Evans' stunt double in Captain America, and has done stunt double work for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil. My guess is he's either working on the Defenders or Infinity War would be my guess. The filming ran over, so he had to cancel. But what exactly he was working on is my guess, but I know, if he's done stuff for Marvel, those are the things that are filming right now. So, odds are he's probably working on one of those. But I did catch some of Dean Cain's panel on Saturday. I've never met Dean Cain, so I had no idea what to expect. But from what I can tell, he is super, super nice. Really, really nice guy. Has aged really well, actually. I used to watch Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman when it was on TV. And I thought he was good looking then. He's still good looking now.
Oh, yes.
So, of course, most of the questions from the audience were about Superman. That's the thing most people know him from, as being an incarnation of Superman, which he totally owns that. He said several times, he's like, I will, totally own that I was Superman for as long as people, care about Superman and the character and all that is not a role that he wants to shy away from at all. He talked about the Alan was doing the person on the stage, asking questions and all that, and moderating the panel and all that. And he asked about, Alan said he had heard that, or he asked Dean how good of a kisser Terry Hatcher was. And Dean told this story about when he got the role for Superman, but they hadn't found their Lois yet. So they were auditioning a bunch of women, and they had 13 women that they needed to audition. And since they already had their Superman, he was part of the audition. And I guess the whole audition was some scene where Lois bursts into the room and is, I guess she's under the influence of something, and yells at Clark, not Superman, but in his Clark Kent persona, and yells at him and then proceeds to kiss him. And they had 13 women, and the last woman was Terry Hatcher, and he's like, of the 13 women, she was the best kisser. Because they wanted to make sure that, you know, that Clark Kent and Lois Lane, they had some chemistry together. So that was why that particular scene was the audition scene. But he's like, yeah, there's definitely some good chemistry there. So he said that he's loving being on Supergirl, you know, playing Kara's, you know, father, and but in where they're going with his particular character, he has no idea, because Alan said something about, hey, you're going to be Cyborg Superman, and Dean's like, like, your guess is better than mine, I don't know. And he said that Melissa's suit, the super suit of Supergirl, way nicer than his ever was. He got to like the set, you know, and she's wearing the suit, and he's like looking at it. He's like, man, it's like the fabric is just, it looks real good. Like the cape is just really, really well made. Oh, he's like, she's got way better suit than what his ever was. But somebody asked, you know, if he would ever consider going over to Marvel. He's like, yeah, I'd cross over, you know. He's like, I'm not loyal to just being in the DC universe, and Marvel wants me. Bring it on.
I would be totally cool with that.
Yeah, well, he would be too.
No, I love Dean Cain. Like, I have a bunch of friends who like are big Batman fans, and you know, and they've got reasons for it. You know, there's always that argument of, you know, Batman is better than Superman, or Superman's better than Batman, which I'm like, you know, whatever you think is great. Mm-hmm. But they always point to, like, you know, the 1989 Batman, or the Batman the Animated Series, and you know, they're like, there's just not been a very good Superman. I'm like, Dean Cain back in the day, like that was my first real, like, I watched that show all the time, and that was my first real introduction to Superman. I hadn't even seen the Christopher Reeve version before that, and I'm just like, I love that show, and I think that's why I think Superman, of the two, I mean, I like Batman, but I think Superman's my favorite, and it's because of Dean Cain's portrayal of him, and I'm like, I just love him.
Yeah, and every, you know, overhearing people in the crowds, you know, as I'm wandering around and all that, and especially the women who got to meet Dean really love Dean. The women really enjoy Dean being there. There may have been some few men too.
And I've heard he's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and apparently he was like Alan's first pick as far as celebrities for the convention for that reason. He'd met Dean several times and knew he was a really cool dude, but just on reputation alone, you know, he really wanted Dean to be the first one of the first people at the first convention, just for that reason. And then the other really big draw besides Dean Cain, were Frank and Trace from Mystery Science Theater 3000, which, after seeing I actually sit through their entire Q&A, just because I have not laughed in a panel like that in I don't know how long. I mean, every now and then you'll get a celebrity, short of the Three Doctors panel at Lexington last year with Peter, Colin, and Sylvester. This was probably the funniest panel I've ever sat in on. And their panel was actually Sunday, but Saturday night they actually did a live riffing of a movie.
Ooh.
In the format of
cool.
Mystery Science Theater 3000. They didn't have the robots with them, and somebody asked them that. It's like, why don't you bring the ring robots, even if you just have them, sitting there, if you're not, doing the puppetry or whatever. And I think it was Trace. He said, well, frankly, we're lazy and we don't want to.
At least he was honest.
Yeah, it's like some people were wondering maybe if they didn't have the rights to use the robots, or like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's like we just don't really want to have to, lug anything else along with us because they've been doing these live riffings at other places. So it's like the less they have to carry with them, the better. So I was very curious about how they were going to do it because they had announced that they were going to do this, and I got to the venue and I'm like, how is this going to work? Because, if you've ever seen Mystery Science Theater, it's the movie on your screen, and then you've got, whoever the incarnations of the show, but, it's the one person and the two robots in silhouette doing the riffing. And we're in this, this theater that's really meant for stage shows. Not necessarily movies, but they do some movies there. But I was like, how are they going to do this? And really what they did is they just lowered the screen and projected the movie, and then Frank and Trace sat in the middle of the audience with a couple of microphones and the script and just did the riffing as the movie played, which, even without the robots and all that, it didn't make it any less entertaining. If it wasn't for the fact that I needed to get home and eat dinner, I probably would have stayed for the entire movie just to hear them do their thing. Just the movie itself was crap, which is kind of the point. That's, all the movies are crap. But just to hear them do it live, it was funny. It was really funny. And they're when they do the riffing of the movies, it's all scripted. I think a lot of their script, it's the jokes or whatever first comes to mind as they watch the movie the first time to get familiar with it and start writing jokes. But just having it written down, make sure that, the jokes are appropriate with whatever, if they're making fun of something specific that's going on the screen, you don't want to say the joke during that time, otherwise it would kind of not make sense. But then they had their Q&A Sunday afternoon, and, of course, a lot of people are asking, hey, have you ever seen this movie? Have you ever heard of this movie? Have you ever done a riff on this particular movie and that sort of thing? They said that someone asked them what the worst movie they ever did was, as far as the show is concerned. And obviously, they do B movies, so all the movies are bad, but the movie that they, by the time they got to the end of watching it several times to write the script, and then shooting the show, and editing the show, and have it air, the one movie where they were both like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that's over, I never want to do that ever again, movie, The Castle of Fu Manchu. So if we have any listeners that are into bad B movies, there's a recommendation for you.
The title already does not recommend itself to me.
Yeah. And then someone asked them if they ever considered riffing on like Hollywood blockbusters. The biggest thing is getting the rights, because they have to be able to get the rights to whatever it is they're riffing on, and the cost would just be astronomical to do, a big Hollywood blockbuster like, the Star Wars prequels or something like that. But they did say that, if they were ever going to do, a big Hollywood, big budget movie to riff on, that they would more than likely do something that was made by Michael Bay. But then they were like, But then we'd actually have to watch something made by Michael Bay.
Yeah, that kind of you kind of lose your enthusiasm for it after you think about it.
And then a couple more recommendations. Again, if we have any listeners that are into bad B movies and want something to add to their to-watch list, the weirdest movie that they ever did was The Creeping Terror, which apparently the movie in itself is really, really weird, but then there's a documentary about the movie called The Creep Behind the Camera, which is all about the guy that made the movie, who is apparently even weirder than the movie itself.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wait, there was a documentary for this thing?
Yeah, apparently.
Alrighty then.
Oh, okay, that's a thing then.
And then also to add to your bad B movie, I should, if I, need something to watch, try the movie Deathbed, which literally is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bed that kills. And Rubber, which is all about a killer tire.
Okay, I've heard of killer tomatoes, killer tires.
Okay,
I don't
the
usually
things that get greenlit to be made.
I know.
Oh my gosh. I want to, like, how do people even
But again, we live in a
of those
world
videos?
where the Fantastic Four remake happened, so...
Or to be a fly on that wall when they pitched that movie.
Well, Chauncey and I were talking about it on the drive home yesterday, and I posed, we had this nice little short philosophical discussion about it. With bad B movies, it's like, movies that are out there that are bad, but were meant, when they were made, the person genuinely wanted to make a movie and thought that they were doing something good, and it just didn't work because of, lack of budget or lack of, resources, or just lack of knowledge on how to make a movie or that sort of thing. So it's like there's bad movies out there that at the time the person making them was like, I'm sure maybe they gave it 110% and it just didn't work. But I'm also curious about how many bad B movies there are out there that were made on purpose. And I don't mean like bad movies that are made to like make fun of bad movies, like a parody or a satire or anything, but surely there are people out there that make bad B movies on purpose just so people can make fun of them.
Well, given how popular Riff Tracks is now, and an MST3K, that's entirely possible.
Yeah. But I guess you'd have to ask the person who made it and see if they actually fess up to it, I guess. If they're honest about where they were coming from, so. But,
yes, you're like, totally, I meant to make a terrible movie for them to make fun of.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but if I thought about that, while they were having their Q&A, because I didn't think about it till way after, because of course, but I would have been interested to hear, if they've watched anything that was made, to be terrible on purpose, if that affected their opinion of the movie any. Yeah, I don't know if that makes a difference going into a movie. It's like, doing what they do, they know everything they're going to watch is bad. But if you know it was made terrible on purpose, can you tell? That sort of thing. If I ever see them again, I'll have to remember that question and ask them. Because Lord knows they've seen enough of them, so they would be the people to ask. But they were super funny. They were super funny. And then I caught a little bit of the Alan Bellman panel, which he's the comic book writer, an artist, and he was at Marvel almost at the beginning. He started working for Marvel when he was 19, on some of the early Captain Americas, right alongside Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and all those guys in their early days of Marvel. So, and he was pretty funny. I mean, he's in that same generation as Stan Lee. He's a few years younger than Stan. Stan's 94. Alan's 92 and a half, I think is what he said. He was very specific about, he's not 92, he's 92 and a half. But he doesn't hear that well. A bit like Stan, he needs, someone asks a question. Alan had to repeat it just like Stan usually has someone up on the stage repeating the question for him. But he's very sharp with his answers, very quick-witted, very sarcastic, and quite funny. So that what bits I caught of his panel was quite amusing. So that was quite adorable. And of course, one of my favorite things about going to these things is the cosplay. So they had a cosplay contest for kids and then one for adults. Those were both on Saturday. And some really good cosplayers, just like there always is. A lot of the costumes that I saw, I keep my eyes peeled because I'm always excited to see what people come up with as far as cosplay. And I saw, some interesting and unique and some stuff that, I expect to see just because you go to enough of these things and you see some characters all the time. You see, at least one Harley Quinn, at least one Deadpool, at least one Doctor from Doctor Who. Their local 501st was there along with the Rebel Legion. So plenty for the Star Wars fans to gush over. But it's always funny because I go and sit and watch these cosplay contests, and they call these people out to show off their costume. I'm like, when did you come in the door? I didn't see you out there. I would have noticed you. Like, I don't know what I was doing, but obviously I was not in the same part of the building you were the entire time. But so some really good costumes, some very creative costumes. The judges had a lot, some really tough decision making, both for the kids and the adults. They had about 24 kids, I think, for the kids cosplay contest. They ended up having 84 entries for the adults, which was quite a bit. So they definitely had their work cut out for them as far as the judges were concerned. I did not envy them at all. And then on Sunday, because Chris Brewster had to cancel, they needed his panel slot. So Michael, aka Night Mage, stepped up and they had a trash can cosplay competition. And how that works is Michael brought a big Rubbermaid tote and a big trash bag full of pieces of clothing and scrap fabric and cardboard and foam and wire and ribbon. Just, the man's made so many costumes, so he's got a lot of leftover stuff that he's been collecting, probably just for this very, very purpose, and dumps it out on a pile. Takes the people that want to participate, split them up into 4 teams, and essentially they had to create a cosplay from scratch with all this stuff, which that in itself kind of hard because you don't know what you're going to have to work with until he dumps it all out, and then you got to grab it. They had a theme. They had to come up with a supervillain. And they had to make sure that the supervillain had a name and a backstory that made sense for their character design and all that. And then they had an hour and a half to make their costume, and they did it up on the stage, in the main stage. So those of us out in the audience could sit and watch the madness as it ensued. But throughout the hour and a half that they were working, Michael would throw roadblocks in.
So kind of like cosplay Chopped with a twist.
A little bit. Yeah, I think the folks of the Food Network probably would have been proud of this. So he would do things like ask them trivia questions. If they got it right, they may get a prize, like a roll of duct tape. If they got it wrong, then they would get punished. They would have punishments like if they got the question wrong, they'd have to kick out a member of their team. Or the other teams could go and steal one item from their pile of items. And then every now and then he'd also ask the audience for things. He'd ask the audience, team number one, name something that is their supervillain's weakness. And the audience would yell out suggestions, and I think one of the, between the four, there were 4 teams. One of the teams, their supervillain's weakness was chickens. Another was applesauce. Another one was ladybugs, and another one was pineapple. So they had to incorporate.
Well, you're not random stuff.
Yeah, they had to incorporate that into their character's backstory. So it was quite amusing. I asked while they were in the middle of everything. I had a one of those cameras that does 360-degree photos. So, and Michael was nice enough to let me come up on the stage while they're in the middle of working, and I took a couple 360 photos and took some 360 video as well, which I can post up on our YouTube channel because YouTube does support 360 video. So if I can figure out how to make that work, I will post that along with the regular video that I took, so you can see that. So that was kind of cool. Overall, I had a really good time. Next year, they've already said they're going to be back next year, which is great. It's great for that area as far as giving, the comic fans something like that in the area. It's also good as far as commerce for the area as well. But they definitely need to move to a different venue because that will not work again. Especially if they have numbers like they did this year. When I talked to Alan a couple weeks ago when I went and picked up my ticket at the museum, he said based on their ticket sales and just general interest on the Facebook page and all that, they were thinking 2,000, maybe 3,000 people, which for a first year, that wouldn't have been terrible.
Decent.
Apparently on Saturday, they hit 6,400 people, and at one point the fire marshal shut them down. Made them stop letting people in.
Jeez.
Yes.
I remember seeing that post on Messenger.
Yeah. They had to shut the doors for about 20 minutes before enough people cleared out they could start letting people back in. So, yeah, 3,000 people, at least twice that.
Wow.
And that was just on Saturday.
Must have really gotten around.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, you can kind of guesstimate based on, people commenting and liking on Facebook, and if you put an event up on Facebook and people can say if they're interested in going and that sort of thing, and pre-ticket sales, you can use that as a gauge, but walk-ups are just in general, walk-ups are really, really hard to guesstimate how many people are just going to show up day of and want to buy a ticket and think they can get in. I saw that happen with PopCon a couple years ago when they had the YouTubers, and it created that big old mess of just so many people just because, you've got so many people that buy their tickets beforehand, but, you have someone like I even, I knew just be as boob and know what the YouTube community is like, and some of the YouTube specific event conventions like VidCon and all that, seeing the crowds from that. It's still hard to fathom until you actually see it in person. But when you invite someone like Jacksepticeye to your event, who's someone who's got millions of YouTube subscribers, even if a small percentage of his subscribers show up, that's a large number of people. So you really can't underestimate the power of the nerd and fandom. But at the same time, you don't want to overestimate and then spend more money than you have to, thinking so many people are going to show up and they don't. So I don't think there is a perfect way to estimate how many people are going to show up to your event when you do something like a comic convention. It's just really just, your best guess, and hope that enough people show up for you to pay the bills, and hopefully do it again next year. But not that too many people show up and people become unhappy because it's too crowded. As far as I can tell, most people were okay. They did not mind how crowded it was. I did page, but you're always going to have people who complain. You can't make everyone happy, unfortunately. But in general, people seem to be happy.
Where this was a first year con, I mean, Salt Lake Comic Con had the same problem their first year, and they totally did not plan for that many people to show up. And then, later years they adjusted and things got better. So, it's all good.
Yeah. So, all things considering, I think they did fairly well. But going forward, I really think they need to move to a different, bigger venue, which... when I talked to Alan, even before the event started, he had already said that, if it happens again next year, they're probably going to have to move to someplace bigger. The part of the problem is they want to keep it in Elkhart, and their two options are the Lerner Theater and the RV Hall of Fame, which I've never been to, but my mother-in-law has. And she said it's a decent-sized venue, so more than likely that's where they will go next year. But it's always subject to change. Their best venue would actually be the Century Center, which is the actual convention center in that area, but it's not in Elkhart. It's closer to South Bend, which is okay because it's not that far for people who are in Elkhart to travel to. But I think they really just want to keep the dollars in Elkhart, in the smaller town, because South Bend, it's a college town. They're not necessarily hurting for money, unlike these smaller towns that are nearby. So we'll see. But they said they'll definitely be back next year. Alan's got his wish list for people that he would like to invite for next year. He got Dean Cain. John Barrowman is high on his list for next year. John, like I said earlier, John's name came up several times over the weekend for one reason or another. I'm pretty sure his ears were burning if he happened to notice
happy belated 50th birthday.
He probably didn't notice in the middle of his 50th birthday shenanigans with Stephen Amell in that teeny tiny outfit. Alrighty. It's John Barrowman, folks. But I know John is on Alan's short list for next year. We'll see if that happens, because apparently Alan's wife is a really big John Barrowman fan and really wants John Barrowman to show up. So keep your eyes peeled. And I don't know who else he's thinking about getting for next year. So, and of course they're still working on raising funds for the museum itself. They need to move to a bigger location. They're having growing pains, a lot like Who North America did, where they're in this tiny little spot, and they just do not have enough square footage for the stuff that they want to have on display. So they need to move to a bigger location, preferably still in Elkhart. So the money they made from the convention, plus things like the virtual 5Ks that they're doing later this year, which I talked to one of the gentlemen that was signing people up there at the convention about the 5Ks. They're doing a Hall of Heroes 5K, and then they're doing a Star Wars one themed closer to May. And they're virtual 5Ks, so you can walk or run outside or on a treadmill or whatever. If you do it outside, just use an app that keeps track of how far you walk, and then you just send them a picture of it, and then they send you a really, really nice medal. They had a couple of the medals on the table, and I picked it up and was not expecting it to be as heavy as it was.
I did one of those for Doctor Who about 3-4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the virtual 5Ks, it's becoming a quite a popular thing because people don't necessarily have the time to go someplace and do a 5K or a half marathon or whatever. Even Disney started doing it. The virtual races. So if you can't make it to the parks to do one of their big races, they have virtual ones you can sign up for, and you get a medal, and there's a really nice medal. So, and the one that the Hall of Heroes is doing, it's a really nice medal. Apparently, the Star Wars medal is going to be really nice too, but they didn't have one of those on hand. But I've got the interview from that I will tack on to the end of this, and then I also have an interview that I did with, and I don't want to butcher his last name, so hold on a second. So I'll pull it up in the program here, because I would hate to do that, because then I would feel bad if he listens to this later. James Wilder, who I've actually seen at a couple of conventions down here in Indy. He is an author. He's actually an Elkhart native. But he is a author, and he wrote a book of Doctor Who poetry several years ago, and there's a poem for every single episode of Doctor Who from the very first episode up through the 50th anniversary.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing that he's most known for, and that's what he was selling the last time I saw him, but since then he's written several more books, and he had a few other books with him then, but since then he's written several other books that are not Doctor Who related, and actually he's also written his first full-length novel that's now that he was selling as well. So I had a nice little chat with him about his books and his writing and Doctor Who and all that fun stuff. So I will also tack the audio for that onto the end of this podcast for you guys to listen to. And of course, I've got photos, which I've posted quite a bit of them already on their Facebook page. And I've also got a lot of video that I need to edit, and hopefully we'll have that up by the end of the week for you guys to watch as well. So, but yeah, my first convention of the season. I'm glad it was only 2 days, because I got to the end of Sunday and got back to the house, and I was like, oh, I am out of shape for this. I'm kind of glad the venue was small, because there was not as much walking involved. And really nice seats to sit in for the panels and all that. But even then, I was feeling it by the end of the weekend. Just between the time change and losing an hour, and the getting up and standing out in the cold, it can be exhausting going to these things, but it's very fun at the same time. So, yeah. as more announcements, once they recuperate, I'm sure Alan and his crew are going to get right onto planning for next year, and will make announcements as far as date and location and all that as soon as they can. Of course, we will post all that on our Facebook page as announcements come out, because we do that sort of thing.
So yes, watch all of our social media spaces, particularly Facebook, which you can find. You can find links to all of our social media goodness at our website, the5ishfangirls.com. And you can also email us, send us feedback if you are going to a convention, if you were at Hall of Heroes, or this weekend if you're going to Salt Lake FanX. I'm going to be there. But if you're going to be there as well, and I mean, I can see a lot of things. I definitely can't see it all. So if you want to talk about your con experience, whichever con you've gone to, you can email us at 5ishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also send us feedback on pretty much anything you'd like, and we'll read it out as long as it's nice. Well,
as long as it's appropriate for the internet.
As long as it's PG.
Yes.
Well, as long as it's family friendly. Yes. Let's say that. So we'll do that. And then, like I said, we're on Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram are kind of our big ones. So you can also leave us comments and feedback there as well. We're also on YouTube. And we have a bunch of places you can find us, and they're all linked to on our website. You can also support us through our Patreon account, which we thank our Patreon supporters who allow us to do this weekly, because you guys rock, and this podcast would be poor in quality as well as finances without you. So we very much appreciate it. And you can also support us through shopping through our Amazon store, which is also on our website. And you can just do your normal Amazon shopping, go through our Amazon link, and we get a little bit from that, so that helps as well. And so check us out online when you're not listening to us on the podcast. We're everywhere.
Yeah, especially stay tuned to all of our social medias, because I'm sure as Chrissy will try and post as much as possible from Salt Lake.
Yes, I will. I will try to. I'll get Instagram and stuff up on my phone and be doing that, and Twitter, and as much as I can, and just watch for it, and it will be a good time.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it. This will probably be. I don't think I'll get to go to the one in September, since Tiny will barely be a month old. Possibly by that point, so this will be my last go for a while, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, not that there would be anything wrong with taking
an
infant to a convention, but you'll only been a mother for about a month, so you kind of need time to adapt.
And I'm a little concerned with so many people and so many germs and such a tiny baby, and I'm just like. Oh boy.
Yeah.
like I've had friends. I know people who've taken their 5-month-old or something like that. But I'm just like, I mean, maybe that's just me. But
no,
yeah. Jared said that he's probably going to go and take his mom. She was going to go with us, but she's had some knee problems, and so the goal is she wants to go in September. So Jared will take her, and I'm like, if someone. If a star comes up, then I'm like, I really want their autograph, I'm just going to send him with money. We'll go from there. But no. So yeah, this weekend I'm going to be there. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's a shorter one and a smaller one, but they've still got so many great guests coming, and it's like, what do we want to see? Everything. We can't. Dang it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
pretty much.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's the way it is with these things. So.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then looking ahead to the rest of the month, don't forget on not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, the 25th, at Who North America from 10 to 1 is the Make-A-Wish fundraiser for Cassidy with KJ on air. We're going to be all sorts of crazy shenanigans, I think, are planned for the events for raising money for Cassidy's wish to go to London. That's her Make-A-Wish wish. She wants to go and see all the as much of the Doctor Who and Harry Potter related stuff as possible, and can't blame her. I would go too. Yeah. We'll get her wish granted, and then I'll see about sneaking myself into her luggage. I'm sure she won't mind. So that is on March 25th at Who North America. And if you can't make it, you can donate online. Go to kjonair.com, and from there you can make a donation to make her wish come true. And then the following weekend, March 31st through April 2nd, is HoosierCon, which I went to last year. Think of it as a downscale Gen Con that it's free, which free is always a good thing. But there's gaming and there's panels. I am doing a podcasting 101 panel on Saturday morning. I think it's at 11 a.m. I have to double check. But if you go to the HoosierCon website, programming for the entire weekend, all the games and crafts and other activities and all the panels, and you can register for that, and it's free. Pretty much everything's free. There's a few craftsy type things where you got to pay a small fee, but you get to take what you made with you. So essentially you're paying for the supplies, but you get to keep the thing that you make. But pretty much everything else, it's free. So those are the next two things coming up for events. So if you happen to be in the area, think about going to those, and that gets us through the end of the month. Of course, we've got other fun conventions, Gen Con, PopCon. I did get my badge confirmation for PopCon, so I'm good for PopCon and Gen Con. And don't forget about Time Lord Expo, entire month of March through April 1st. They're having a big sale on badges for Time Lord Expo, so pretty much everything's been slashed like half price. If you're thinking about going, now would be a good time to get your badge, especially if you want to do the Tom Baker VIP experience with that Skype session with Tom Baker, because it's only $75, which an opportunity to potentially ask Tom Baker a question, probably worth every penny, I think. And that also includes admission to the convention for the entire weekend as well, and some other swag that only the VIPs are going to get and no one else, that I know a thing or two about what's going to be included in that, but I'm not going to say anything. And also don't forget to sign up for the cosplay contest. They did put in an announcement for the cosplay contest. One, as a reminder for people to sign up, and two, they did announce who the judges are going to be, and I'm still kind of pinching myself that my face is listed with Paul McGann's, Sophie Aldred, Sylvester McCoy's, and Terry Malloy.
Yes, very sorry.
They posted that on Facebook, and I'm just looking at it like, how am I included with these people? What is this ridiculousness?
You should frame that. You should print it out and frame it. Put it up by your dancing baby Groot.
I saved it from Facebook onto my phone. I was at Hall of Heroes, but I had to send it to Chauncey, and I'm like, how is this my life? I don't understand. Not that I'm complaining, but it's just so surreal. It's like, Paul McGann, and Sylvester McCoy, and Sophie Aldred, and Terry Malloy, and me!
You are moving up in the world, my friend.
Oh, it's just madness, I tell you, madness. So, but it should be a good time. So, don't let the judges of the cosplay contest intimidate you by not entering. We'll be nice. Well, I say we'll be nice.
Rachel's not all that intimidating. Come on.
I'm not intimidating. I'm sure Paul and Sophie and Terry will be nice. Sylvester's the wild card. Every time I think about Sylvester McCoy being a judge for this,
sit by Sophie, you'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of thinking we maybe need to put Sylvester in the middle so that we can box him in.
Yeah, he was gallivanting up on the stage.
I could just see it now. The person's up there showing off their costume, and we're like, oh yeah, that's great, good work. And Sylvester's gonna be like, but can you play the spoons? That's gonna be his judging criteria: is can they play the spoons? Oh my goodness! No, but no, I know I caught Patrick's live feed from the Time Lord Expo Facebook page on a Saturday night, and encouraging people to make sure they get to book their hotel room, so you get the discounted rate, and of course sign up for the cosplay contest. And if you haven't bought your badge, do it now while they're on sale. Apparently, there's going to be another guest announcement. I have no idea who it's going to be, but if everything goes well, it'll be announced in about June. So. Again, I know as much as you guys do, so I'll be pleasantly surprised with everyone else, I guess, unless he decides to tell me early, which, even if he did, I still can't say anything, so I'll just act surprised. I knew about Terry Malloy a few hours before everyone else did, he told me, but I kept my mouth shut. I was like, cool, Davros! I've met him before. He's awesome. So, but, exciting stuff. Exciting stuff is happening in fandom and conventions and movies and TV shows. And I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to go see Beauty and the Beast before I have to go away again this weekend. And I got to figure out when I'm going to go see Power Rangers next week. First world
it's just
problems.
It's just going to be a really busy couple of weeks.
Yeah. It's stuff's just starting to ramp up. It's like it was kind of quiet after New Year's, and now spring is getting ready to spring, and stuff is happening.
Into
it's exciting.
Spring, summer movies and season finales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So make sure you are following us on social media and like our Facebook page for all the shenanigans, because it's going to be one heck of a ride, folks. It's going to be very exciting. There's going to be lots of tangents and lots of squee. We're just getting started, so. Oh my. Okay. I'm going to stop talking now before my voice gets
We're just
out.
Excited for all the cons coming up.
It's like con season, yay! It's like cosplay and hanging out with friends and all sorts of shenanigans. Good time had by all. If you have any questions or anything about anything, feel free to message or email us, and we'll answer it best we can. Yep. So I think with that, we will sign off for this week.
This is Brittany and Bev saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Ellen from Wisconsin saying good evening.
This is Mitch saying goodnight from Kitchener, Ontario.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Goodbye, everyone. And those in winter storm, please be careful. All right. Oh, okay. Well, I'm here at the first ever Hall of Heroes Comic-Con, and I'm standing here with
Josiah.
All right, and what are you promoting here?
We're promoting the first ever Hall of Heroes virtual 5K. It's a virtual race where basically you sign up online, you can run or walk the 5K distance, 3.1 miles at your own time, at your own place, and it's a $30 entry fee, and half the proceeds go straight to the Hall of Heroes Museum relocation fund. Okay. So it's a $200,000 job that he's trying to get done, and we're just trying to help out as best we can.
Okay. I've never done a virtual 5K, but I know people who have. So you say you do it on your own pace and your own time. I'm assuming it's honor system.
Yeah, basically, what you would do is you would go out and walk it. We'd ask use an app, or if you have a smartphone or a smartwatch, just snap it when you're done. Mm-hmm. You walk the distance, email it to us, and we verify that you've registered. You do get a very cool medal. It's one of a kind Hall of Heroes medal.
I see that.
And then this weekend we are giving away free T-shirts with the registration. So it's fantastic.
What's the timeline as far as when they have to finish?
Yeah, well, we opened up on the 9th. You have until the end of May to finish. So registration will stay open until the end of May. Okay. You can sign up and register. And by that time, our second race will be open, which is a Star Wars themed race. So
nice.
we're hoping to keep the ball rolling here. So.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, cool. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I forgot to add the website. It's finishanywhere.com, so www.finishanywhere.com. That's where you're going to run to sign up for that race and any future races that we have.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
All right. Actually, I think I've talked to you once before at maybe it was Indiana Comic-Con a couple of years ago. Yeah. I think maybe. Some con in Indy, I think.
I've been to Gen Con, Indy PopCon, Indiana Comic Con, and InCon Junctions.
Okay, well, yeah. So I'm sure I've seen you. You are so popular. You've got like prime real estate right here.
We just go to a lot of cons.
Yeah. You may be a writer, but you still gotta be able to talk.
Yeah, bow ties are very cool.
Bow ties are the best, especially if they're clip-on. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I should have you properly introduce yourself here.
Okay.
I know, your head's like, what? This con's been nuts.
It has been insane. Okay, so I'm James Wilder. I'm an author from Elkhart, Indiana, and so here I am at this con finally in my hometown after touring around. I've been at 23 cities, I think.
Wow.
So finally, here I am in somewhere where I didn't have to drive anywhere.
You can sleep in your own bed tonight.
Yeah, it's magic, I'll tell you that.
That's always a nice thing.
Yeah. I'm most noted for writing my Doctor Who poetry book, An Eloquence of Time and Space, which has a poem for every televised Doctor Who story from 1963 to 2013. I've also written some produced plays, namely Kryptos, and I have some other poetry, short stories in print, as well as now my first novel, which is a sci-fi book called 10,000 Dawns.
Very cool, very cool. So, obviously you've got a variety of different written works here, but of course, an eloquence of time and space is your big thing. And also the first thing I saw when I first met you the first time, so obviously you're a Doctor Who fan.
Yes.
So, 50 plus years of television. I guess two-part question. One, at what point did you get into Doctor Who, and at what point did you decide, I'm going to write something for 50 years of television?
Okay, so I've been a Doctor Who fan since before I could really, make full memories in my brain.
Yeah.
One of my earliest memories, in fact, is I watched the Seeds of Doom, the Patrick Troughton one, and there's all that foam that coats the Earth, and I decided I was going to replicate it with the family Legos. So I built it all, and then I got my dad's shaving cream, and I just sprayed it everywhere, and I was in so much trouble. So Doctor Who has been just very formative for me for a very long time. It's my favorite television show, and it has been for longer than I can remember. So when the 50th anniversary of the show came around, I'd already had my first book of poetry, Cascade, come out, and I wanted to do something special for fans of the show. And so I thought, well, what can I do? And I started looking into it. I was like, no one's made there've been like a few like little attempts at it, but no one's made like a really big like Doctor Who poetry book before. And I thought, well, what could be the most special way to do that? What if I could chronicle the whole 50 years of the show in poetry, make an episode guide to the show so people could follow along poem by poem and episode by episode if they wanted to. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to do it. I went on Kickstarter. A lot of Doctor Who fans came to my aid and gave me the funding I needed to get this book done. I hired an artist named Olivia Hinkle from Indianapolis, who's amazingly talented. She right now works for the Phoenix Theater as doing stuff with them down in Indy. And we put this book together. It took a lot of work, but it came out. It's amazing, and the response has been fantastic, thankfully. I mean, it's made my writing career. It's how fantastic the response has been. So I can't really be modest about it anymore.
Now, are you formally trained? I mean, did you go to school for writing, or you just always been someone that likes to write?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been writing from a very young age, but also I was taught writing at Hanover College in southern Indiana. I was taught mainly by Kathy Barber and Mark Fearnow down there. They were really, really influential in just getting me to where I am and helping me develop my style. Hanover is a great place for English stuff, and it's really good that I went there. Yeah.
Oh. So tell me about your other books here. You like I was saying, you've got quite a variety. You've got a full novel. You've got just based on the covers alone, it's obvious that you write just it seems like a little bit of everything. And someone was commenting because you have these little signs for some of your books. It's like, if you like X, then this book will be for you. And I can't, whatever one it was, if you don't like, was it Internet Commentators?
If you don't like Internet Commentators, that book was for you. Yeah, which then, one person came by and said, but I like Internet Commentators. And I was just like, then that book, just, you don't want to go there.
Nope. So you just write whatever tickles your fancy, or you get inspiration for something and you're like, I gotta write that down.
Yeah, I mean, one thing which has, enabled me to keep writing is just that I haven't stuck to one thing because I like doing whatever is driving me creatively. So my books vary wildly. 3 of them are plays, the scripts to them that have been put on. One's short plays, one's a time-traveling comedy about a girl from colonial America who comes to the present day. Then there's Cryptos, which is a supernatural mystery about cryptozoologists. Cascades, my first book of poetry, as I mentioned. And then The Dark and Splendid Diary of Danielle Simpson and Other Tales, whose title in hindsight might be too long, is my first collection of prose. It's short stories as well as my first novella, but I'm really proudest right now of 10,000 Dawns, my novel, which you've serialized first. And the art was done by an artist in Canada named Annie Zhu. We collaborated on the whole thing, did art chapter by chapter, and it's it's a 500-page monster, but it's one that I think people are really going to enjoy, so I'm glad about it.
So, back to your Doctor Who poetry. Yes. Obviously, you wrote that the year of the 50th. Mm-hmm. Doctor Who's been still going since then, so are you... you're probably still watching the show, I'm assuming. Oh, yeah. But are you watching it, or do you watch it for fun, or do you watch it and sit there with like a notebook, or do you go back and watch them and sit? Are you still writing any chance of a sequel, maybe?
Okay, so I'm actually planning to, as time goes on in the future, every time we get a new Doctor, I'll make another edition where I add in poems about the previous Doctor's tenure. Yeah. So right now, Capaldi's going to finish his run soon. So
I know, I'm so sad.
So I'm wrangling Olivia Hinkle again to get some more art, and we're going to touch up some problems with the first one. Yeah. Get a better index, just do a lot of touch-ups and also add in all those poems.
Yeah.
So, it'll hopefully just keep going forever.
Yeah. We can only hope. Forever and ever and ever. I don't want another wilderness year. No one does. This past year's been bad enough as it is.
Oh, God.
It's like, how long till Easter? So you're here at this con, but is your stuff available? Do you have an online store?
If you go to jameswilder.com, there's links to all my books on Amazon, and I mean, they're all on Amazon, so it's pretty easy to find them.
Okay. So if someone doesn't, if you're not at a con, then people can still get your stuff. So
Absolutely, positively.
But you will be at other cons in the future?
Yes, I tour probably too much.
Yeah.
So.
I know how you feel.
Yeah.
The schedule is quite full.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. Any and all movies, books, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied.